Well, guys, this is what we call the after party.
Gotcha.
And you've heard of after parties, Ben. It's just not exactly what you were thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
I've been to a few.
And Eddie, we have a question, and I'll pop it up on the screen for everybody. How does one get the value of a land tract to enable to place an offer? She meant she did a correction. For real property, we use comps, etc. How does land work?
I'm gonna let Greg take that one.
I would say land is real property. It's about as real as it gets, and you're going to do it just about the same way. You're going to look for similar properties in the area, compare it based on acreage, all the different attributes of it. I will tell you, it's a little bit harder to value land. The comps aren't quite as readily available. Sometimes you have to go a little bit further back, but for us, that's how we value it.
We use
and Sharon.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Sharon had a comment that's kind of related to what you just said, which is unlike the residential housing land value based on its usage, residential, commercial, timberland, they all have different ways to be evaluated. Yeah. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to say we internally we use a what we call our data sheet. So we will put together actual comps of properties that have sold in the county, and we break those up by acreage. So under an acre, between 1 and 3 acres, 3 and 6. So we get ranges, and then we compare them of what they sold versus their assessed value and price per acre. And if you get that, you've got a really good idea of how land is valued, and obviously going to see it and just being involved in it.
You know, land guys develop a judgment, is what I've noticed, right? Mm-hmm. You had was it 33 acres, 36? I forget exactly what 33. It was.
Yep.
33, yeah. So the thing about it, though, is that the way it was narrow, it was kind of had a neck to it, right? So it was narrow at the front, and it went back. And so you get into a little bit of a question of usable acreage, right? Mm-hmm. And so had that been 33 acres all along the road that you could have cut into 4 tracts, its value to buy it would have been very different, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And so those are things that you now have developed kind of a sense and a judgment about. I think it's common sense, but you understand the rules that relate to the common sense. You guys obviously have great common sense.
I think it's just experience more than anything. Just like a house. I mean, when you're doing single family versus one area versus another, you just experience and understanding what you can do.
Well, guys, but it didn't start out, did it, where this guy said, well, I want, $100,000 for this, right? I mean, you kind of talked through it. He expressed what he was looking to get out of it. So it wasn't like it was just so difficult to go out and nail a price for this land, right? I mean, am I going along the same right trail there?
Yeah, Greg, I mean, we've got a system for how we do all that. It's weekly. I'll let Greg.
Yeah. So we'll obviously do the research on it and go ahead and send out what an offer we think would be fair for, and then from there we'll either call the seller, they'll call us, we'll do negotiation at that point, or we'll follow up in the future with a revised offer and really take a look at it. And it's systematic how we do that. We wait.
And obviously the price you pay is irrelevant to whether it's all cash or terms, right?
Correct. So that's something we're looking forward to learning. We're baby pups when it comes to seller caring on the front end. We're looking forward to learning from you guys on that.
And I would say something with the land that we haven't mentioned is it's prime for finance. And one big reason is a lot of banks don't lend on land. And so if banks don't lend on land, you either have to have all cash or the seller has to finance, whether you're buying it from the seller or we're selling it. It's without banks involved, we're the bank.
Our person that made the comment a minute ago on the screen, Scott, our producer, read it back to us. It's interesting because what she said was she was referring to a house as real property, as if land wasn't real property, right? Yeah. And Greg, you quickly corrected and said it is real, but here's the reality, right? A lot of land is difficult. It's difficult to sell it the way we're used to traditionally selling property, right? They've called. How many times have you guys had a customer call you about selling a tract of land and they've had it listed with a realtor, or they talked to a realtor and the realtor went on and on about what it was worth, and then they couldn't sell it.
105 times out of 100.
Right. And so that's the advantage, is the fact that it's not, it traditionally is not very efficiently sold through realtors. Now, we mutually know people that are smart land people that happen to be realtors. So that doesn't mean every realtor doesn't know how to do it. But most realtors don't know how to do it. And that's become your business model.
It's hard. I mean, it's a hard asset for people to understand unless you really commit to understanding it.
Right.
And it's not, I don't mean it's hard like, hey, you got to be a rocket scientist to understand the whole process and how to actually buy a tract of land. But it takes, just like anything else, it takes, time and effort and energy to learn it.
Yeah. Well, you guys have built a business around this. This is your gig, right? And you do it every day, and so you've really taken it to a different level. I've met lots and lots of people that did land on a very part-time basis and did okay with it, right? Did pretty good with it, and obviously, as you guys know, as I said at the beginning of the show, I love land, and it is because really, at the end of the day, what I've discovered is if you find the right buyer that buys the land from you and you own or finance it, the right land and the right buyer, they almost never default, because I used a word earlier, and I was taught that word by a landman, and he used to say, Eddie, this land is sacred to these people.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, country land and good country, hardworking people, it's their land. They want it. That's just how it is.
It's kind of like their sanctuary, especially with everything that's going on now, to be able to get out and go out, and even that, it's got a little road there, but you get in that and then you stand there and kind of look at it, and it is real. And Greg, Ben, I just have to ask you a question here. So is there as much competition in this as there was when you were buying and selling houses?
You don't have to answer that, guys.
Although it's interesting, we have definitely seen an uptick in we receive more letters now for tracts that we own than we have in the past. But no, houses are a whole nother animal.
And one thing I want to, before we hang up, and I know we need to, but I want to say one thing, because people hear me do like the weather report, Ben, so to speak, of the market, because what's happening in the weather right now might be very different from what's going to happen because of what's working behind the curtain, right? But sure. You guys' land business and some of this other network of guys that we're in, and so my partners in the land business, we put a tract of land for sale, and within 75 days, we sold $2 million worth of land.
It's insane.
True story. And so
for cash.
Yeah, we actually did sell it for cash. I wish we could have owner finance part of it, but they just were, they were like literally just like, no, we want to pay cash. And I mean, it's like we sold 7 tracts in about 60 days. My guys did. Awesome job. And people, so to understand what Joe said about the virus is true. This country land, this particular land was about 90 miles from Dallas-Fort Worth. It was pretty land, and people were buying that land to do what?
Get away.
To go escape being in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you guys we have 2 questions that are kind of related to what we've just been talking about. So is it okay? We'll just take these. They'll be the last 2 questions. The first is from Marv S. Where do you find listings for tracts of vacant land, such as this one, larger or smaller? I see ads for vacant land on Craigslist all the time, but there are some publications you 3 subscribe to? Before you answer that, let me bring up Charles. What sources do you use to locate the tracts you want to make an offer on? So they're kind of like the same question.
I'll let the marketing guru take care of it.
So I'd say in terms of finding land and basically where we market to, landwatch.com is going to be one of the biggest sources They pull everything that is on the MLS, and that's probably going to be your number one source. And then Facebook Marketplace has been really good too. You kind of have to sort through a lot of things, but that's another hot spot that you can sell on or find tracts on as well. Craigslist is another good place, but just like land versus houses, it's a little bit harder to find it compared to houses.
Right.
So keep that in mind. But Land Watch and Facebook Marketplace are it. And then in
Great
terms
tips.
of finding the list, I'd say it's going to be about the same as houses. We like to go directly to the county, get the list from them. There's also data providers you can get out there. You just want to get the list and go ahead and sort it for the type of land you want.